The Prime Minister is in the eye of a political storm. Sure, it's a cliche, but what else would you call it? And maybe that's why Justin Trudeau is adjusting his message. This week, he revealed he had many discussions about SNC-Lavalin's fraud and bribery case. What does that mean? Well, the Prime Minister is saying he was lobbied not only by the company, but by two Quebec premiers. Then the Prime Minister said he shared their concerns about how a trial could hurt Quebec and this huge engineering firm with Jody Wilson-Raybould. But, and this is important, Trudeau is sticking to his story that he did not break the law and order her to stop that trial.
There are many discussions going on, which is why Jody Wilson-Raybould asked me if I was directing her or going to direct her to take a particular decision, and I, of course, said no, that it was her decision to make, and I expected her to make it.
So that's Trudeau's side of the story, but we won't know what really happened until Wilson-Raybould tells hers. And if she could talk, here's what I would want to know. 1, is the Globe and Mail story true, that she was pressed by the Prime Minister's office to intervene in SNC-Lavalin's criminal case, or else? 2, who from the Prime Minister's office was doing the pressing? And 3, does she believe the PM was breaking the law, obstructing justice, by pressuring her to cut a deal with a giant firm? A lot of people have the same questions, including the opposition.
If it wasn't obvious before, Ms. Wilson-Raybould's resignation makes it crystal clear.
The Prime Minister is clearly trying to hide the truth.
He has used his power of privilege to silence her.
Hashtag Let Her Speak has been trending. It even made the front page of the Toronto Sun. There's a Conservative-led petition, too. More than 10,000 people are calling on the PM to let Wilson-Raybould tell her story. But she can't speak because she's bound by something called solicitor-client privilege. As Attorney General, she was the Prime Minister's lawyer and needs his permission to say what happened. Joining me now is the Deputy Conservative Leader, Lisa Raitt. So your party is calling on the Prime Minister to waive the solicitor-client privilege to let her speak. So you're not buying this argument that would set a dangerous precedent and interfere with other court proceedings?
It just seems to me that they keep opening it up little by little by little, and they're telling their side of the story and their side of the narrative. But the minute they say, well, maybe we want to hear from Jody Wilson-Raybould on the other side, oh no, solicitor-client privilege. So the best thing to do is just to waive it. And she's smart enough to know what she can and can't say without damaging the trials that are before, because at the end of the day, she's a former Crown, and she was the AG, and I can't imagine she wants to hurt the pursuit of justice.
The Prime Minister is now being very open that, yes, he was lobbied, that, yes, there's lots of reason for SNC to put pressure on us to try and avoid a trial. There's jobs, there's a huge company, it's the largest engineering firm in the country, pensions at risks, everything. Your leader, Andrew Scheer, he was lobbied by SNC as well last May, when that company was looking for support for this kind of deal. What was his position on that? What is his position now? Does he think that a deal should be cut?
So what was interesting is SNC came in to lobby a couple of Conservatives, 8 Conservatives in total, 4 NDP, and 246 Liberal connections. So there was a big difference. But the reason being is this piece went into the Budget Implementation Act. And they wanted to make sure that our leader understood what it was all about, so that he could have some context as we took a look and we debated the act. And that was it. He didn't have to weigh in on whether or not he was in favor or not. We were voting against the Budget Implementation Act anyway.
But it's a big issue now.
Yeah, it is.
What is his position? Does he support the idea of cutting a deal with SNC?
I think what he's supportive of is the fact that these jobs are really important. You can't deny it. You know how important that company is to Quebec.
So would he?
But the problem is that the way in which they approached the issue was allegedly by putting pressure on the Crown prosecutor to change her mind. That's not how you go through it.
I get that he's got a big problem with that, but he wants to be Prime Minister. if he was Prime Minister now, would he cut a deal with SNC? I mean, the current Prime Minister is saying there's huge issues at stake, people's jobs at stake.
So it's an important issue, though, right? So you have the independence of the judiciary or of the Crown prosecutor versus public policy, public interest. But what I can tell you is that the debate would happen at Cabinet, and if a deal were to be made...
But shouldn't we know where he stands on this? This is a big issue now.
Well, because you have to have the debate at Cabinet, and if a deal were to be made, it would be made and the Canadian public would know what the deal was, instead of trying to use the office of the prosecutor to do it through the back door.
Do you think she's going to talk?
Yes,
How?
I do.
When? She'll find a way?
Yes, she will.
A legal way?
She said she would. And she will be bound by law. I mean, she's a former Crown prosecutor. I do believe Jody Wilson-Raybould is a woman of principle, and she wants to talk. She said that already, and she will get it out the best way that she can.
As you say, the Prime Minister's been sort of speaking for her over the last few days, saying, please stop using racist, sexist terms about her. What did you think when he said that?
6 days too late. It happened last weekend, and people were continuously saying negative things about her in a whisper campaign, which I found to be distasteful and completely wrong. Women in power,
because
their
it's not
ears,
true or because it's wrong?
I don't know if it's true or untrue. And nor does anybody else. But to use the terminology that a woman is difficult, I'm probably difficult in being dealt with if I have a point of view, but difficult when you're a woman translate into a different kind of adjective for a woman, and we all know what that means. And I did not like the fact that people were sent out to have that conversation, and I spoke up.
Really appreciate hearing your side of the story. We'll see where her story goes in the days to come. Thanks so much for talking to me.
I appreciate it.
Lisa Raitt, Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. So if and when Jody Wilson-Raybould does talk, there are clues to what she might say. The first big one came when she was demoted or fired as Justice Minister. She said, "It is a pillar of our democracy that our system of justice be free from even the perception of political interference." Now, there are a lot more clues. This week, in her resignation letter, instead of providing the Prime Minister with any cover for the swirling allegations, she gave no reason at all. And then get this, she thanks all Canadians who put their trust in me and supported me, along with officials and her staff. Who's not thanked? The Prime Minister. There's also the timing here. The day before, Trudeau traveled to her hometown of Vancouver. He said they met, and then he implied she was on side.
She confirmed for me a conversation we had this fall, where I told her directly that any decisions on matters involving the Director of Public Prosecutions were hers alone.
Because of that solicitor-client privilege, she's not allowed to give her version, but Trudeau spoke for her, adding,
in our system of government, of course, her presence in Cabinet should actually speak for itself.
So what does it say now that she's resigned? There are more clues here. Wilson-Raybould's family and friends have not been silent. Her father is leading the charge.
I would have resigned and immediately, and I wouldn't have taken as important a portfolio as Defense and Veterans Affairs is as some way to keep quiet, which seems to me what the Prime Minister tried to do to a woman that has integrity and won't listen to that kind of stuff.
Wilson-Raybould reposted some of that interview, thanking her dad for his unwavering support. She also posted this tweet from Jane Philpott, a close friend and one of the heavy hitters in Trudeau's cabinet. "You taught me so much, particularly about Indigenous history, rights and justice. I'm proud of the laws we worked on together." Wilson-Raybould's still not talking, still not denying allegations she was pressured by the Prime Minister's office. But there are clear signs she's getting ready to tell her story. The last clue is her lawyer. She makes it clear in her resignation letter that she's determined to speak out. "I am in the process of obtaining advice on the topics that I am legally permitted to discuss in this matter." And look who she's hired. None other than a former Supreme Court Justice, Thomas Cromwell. Joining me now from Ottawa is a very familiar face, Don Newman. Yes, we were reporters together. He's covered federal politics for decades, so I really want to get your sense of this. Don, this has been called the sort of thing that could actually bring down a government. Is it? You've seen a few of these go by. Could this bring down a government, this government?
Great to see you again, by the way. Not really. You know, at the absolute most, it might bring down a prime minister, but I don't even think it's going to do that. It would take over 20 Liberals to vote with the opposition parties on a no-confidence motion in the government for that no-confidence motion to pass. And there aren't going to be 20 Liberals that do that. There aren't probably going to be any Liberals that do that. And so I don't think that's going to happen. Where it may come into play, though, of course, is in the election campaign. Scandals have defeated governments before, but they've defeated them at the ballot box. They haven't really, other than the, and I wasn't, I covered a lot of politics, but I didn't cover this. The Sir John A. Macdonald government was, in a sense, defeated by the CPR scandal in the House of Commons when somebody changed their vote. But that's not going to happen here.
So you were there during the Airbus scandal involving Brian Mulroney. You were there during the sponsorship scandal involving Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, Duffy Wallen, that scandal. How does this one compare?
Well, this is, it has all the possibilities of being as major a scandal as the sponsorship scandal, except for one thing. In the sponsorship scandal, the Liberal Party was divided, and it was really, they were fighting each other. The Paul Martin Party thought that Jean Chrétien and his government would wear all of the sponsorship damage that was done. But most Canadians didn't realize that there were actually two Liberal parties at the time, and they just blamed all of the Liberals. And that was a big mistake. Putting the Gomery inquiry, if you remember the Gomery inquiry, and investigating the Liberal Party, when the Liberal Party had commissioned the Gomery inquiry to do that, has got to be one of the biggest political mistakes I've ever seen.
But now
that's not going to happen this time.
That's not going to happen because now there's pressure to call an inquiry.
Well, it won't be like, if it is, it'll be headed by a Liberal MP, and there's damage done, and but there's not going to be a public inquiry, I don't think. Now, if when the minister comes out and does say things that are so damaging that somehow it blows up the government, then I'm wrong. But I can't imagine that that's going to happen, although the government has been so poorly advised and poorly planning how to handle this whole thing, going back to the cabinet shuffle, that you sometimes wonder if they have any idea what they're doing. There were three real keys to the Liberal election victory in 2015. One was Indigenous voters, one was women, and one was young people. Well, they managed to annoy Indigenous women and women in general, and they haven't got to the young people quite yet, but 2 out of 3 isn't bad, and how they would manage to do that seems to me crazy. When they knew that the minister didn't want to be shuffled, didn't want to go anywhere, and I just can't understand how they did that. They do seem to be trying to get their story more in shape now by the end of last week, but to let it get as far as it has become so far really puzzles me. And so I guess that's the only caveat I would have, Wendy, that they've messed it up so far quite a bit, and they may mess it up some more.